Eclipse season begins with the solar eclipse in Libra on Saturday, October 14th. Conjunct South Node, it has cleansing and spiritual energy, calling us to examine the shadow side of Libra, release unhealthy people-pleasing tendencies, and make changes that bring more balance to our relationships. Let's take a closer look and break it down for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you like my channel, don't forget to like or comment, subscribe, and press the notification bell. You also have an option of saying thank you and buying me a coffee if you appreciate my work and feel so inclined. Before we dive in, a couple of announcements. I am working on an astrological planner for 2024, and you can find out when it comes on sale on my website. So head to anastasiadoesastrology.com and sign up for my newsletter. And also keep an eye out for my videos and for an announcement. Additionally, you can work with me at Anastasia by booking a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com for an in-person consultation where we dive into your chart and discuss your natal promise, natal potential, your karmic lessons. We can also do a solar return or a year ahead reading where we look at the transits to come. I am currently running a Libra season special, meaning every Libra sun gets 20% off natal and solar return readings. Coupon codes down below. And once again, visit anastasiadoesastrology.com for more. So this is the first eclipse of the fall of 2023. We always get two eclipses about 6 months apart. An eclipse is a major time of karmic adjustment, the time when the scale, the karmic scale, gets balanced. Here we're literally talking about Libra, the sign of the scales, and it's a big time of shifts. We always, astrologers, we urge people not to do any manifestation type work on the eclipse because try as you might to make things happen. This is the time when the universe decides for you and makes adjustments that are based on the previous actions that you have done. Solar eclipse is the sun coming together with the moon. It's the new moon, but the new moon on steroids. This one happens in 21 degrees, 7 minutes of Libra at 1:54 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, October 14th. And if you have planets in cardinal signs, if you are a cardinal rising sign, which is Aries, Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn, especially if your planets or points or angles are located later in Libra, so anywhere between 17, 18 degrees and 25 degrees cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, you're likely to feel this energy even more. We will all feel it, but like I said, cardinal signs feel it more. I made a video about Mars going through similar aspects and kind of previewing the eclipse for us, so check out my channel for that. But let's talk about this eclipse. So a major feature here is that it conjoins South Node. And in astrology, we have North Node and South Node, and those carry quite diametrically opposing properties. South Node has the energy of the past. It has the energy of the wise, not always wise, because nodes really have kind of karmic forces energy that doesn't always has intelligence behind it, but it's like, it's a cool energy. It's the energy of somebody who doesn't care for material things and instead goes and meditates every day, all day, every day. So South Node brings the lessons of the past. It shows us gifts of the past, and it's, like I said, not very materially driven, versus North Node is hungry. North Node is hungry for achievement, advancement, things you can touch and hold. So the fact that we're getting an eclipse that is representative of new beginnings in conjunction to the South Node, which is representative of endings and closings and the past and endings, suggests that new beginnings that we get come out of endings of some sorts, right? Like South Node carries history behind it. So around this time, having important realizations about your history, about history of your family, about the origin of your relationship habits is highly, highly likely. And this lasts, starting a couple of weeks before the eclipse, lasting for a couple of weeks after the eclipse. There's a lot of churning in the skies that is affecting us as well. So we are examining relationship dynamics. It's a lovely time to realize whether, whether if something doesn't serve you, you may be realizing that something is outdated, right? And this would be an opportunity to release not only your negative relationship tendencies, but also release people who are not supportive of you and are not constructive to your growth. Alternatively, because South Node represents the past and it is coming, you can also be understanding things and solving old problems, right? And approaching them from that more cool and collected perspective. You may be examining what you find desirable, right? Libra being the sign ruled by Venus, looking at what's important to you. Is that the shallow thing? Is that what the person looks like or how much money they have? Or is it more about the feeling you get from them or how much you can learn from them? Similarly with your job, right? How much value do you place on money versus soul fulfillment, etc. This eclipse conjoins Mercury and squares Pluto. So that's why the video I made earlier was specifically talking about Mars conjoining South Node and squaring Pluto. So definitely check out that video. But conjunct Mercury, square Pluto is a sign of some kind of deep insights, transformative conversations. Just the other day, yesterday actually, I was having a moment of clarity, and it wasn't necessarily something I didn't know. That is a big significator of this eclipse. It's not a brand new lesson, right? South Node is the past. South Node is something you are likely already aware of. So yesterday I was having a realization of how my style of dealing with conflict in relationship is impacted by my style of dealing with my parents, and how, coming from early time of my childhood, how I am still sort of living through the same energies and the same patterns, and how I don't have to do that, right? There is so much freedom in understanding. And so the eclipse conjunct Mercury and squaring Pluto can be the sign that you're having an informational download, and then you're having the power to overcome things and to step outside of the patterns. And it's not always easy, right? The realization of I don't have to do that doesn't equal me not doing that, because on a core level, on like a learned level, that is what I'm doing. So, but we all have the power to change. And the South Node can also point you towards things that need to be released, right? Pluto can be an indicator of holding on too tightly in some areas, fears that are driving you, old patterns that you're repeating, control issues, right? Like a lot of times we do things again and again because that is comfortable, or we act a certain way because we maybe are scared internally, but we're not willing to admit that we are. Making changes that bring more balance into your life is highly likely. Making changes that allow you to create relationships that are fair, right? Like the healthy Libra is an equal balance scale. While so many Libras I know, and myself as a Libra rising included, we don't have that balance all the time. So this eclipse is an invitation for you to make changes that are looking at that Aries North Node energy as well, and suggest that you gotta start from yourself, you gotta learn yourself, you gotta understand your patterns and your habits, and then through that you can actually improve your relationships, and you can bring more alignment and attunement and awareness into your relationships. Finally, this eclipse is ruled by Venus in Virgo, and that is Venus in her fall. And Venus in fall means that it's Venus, the planet of love, in the sign of the mind. So she's doing a little bit less of just being chill, and she's doing a lot more of thinking and analyzing. So on the negative, of course, like there might be more criticism, right? And maybe realizing your own flaws and realizing your own perfectionism or projecting it on the other people. So watch out for being too critical of others, right? But on the positive, this could also bring a sense of understanding, right? Like Venus in Virgo, I had like an Instagram fight with somebody once because they said Venus in Virgo cannot love, or she doesn't know what love is. And I'm born with Venus in Virgo, and I was like, excuse me, what are you talking about? And Venus in Virgo, like, it just felt so like a comment that comes from a place of the lack of awareness, I think, because Venus in Virgo knows love sometimes even deeper than some other placements, because Venus in Virgo knows what needs to be done for your partner to be healthy, to be calm, to be protected, right? Like Venus in Virgo is very acts of service love. It's the love that shows up. It's the love that is there. So of course, Venus in Virgo can be critical, but then once she chooses the partner, she's there, she's committed, she is willing to give as much as necessary. So here, looking at your partners, looking at your relationships through an honest lens, and understanding that, maybe they're not perfect, but neither are you. And that's okay. It's okay to be in a relationship with somebody who's imperfect in general, but maybe they are just the person you need. And so there's a lot of freedom and there's a lot of joy that can come from letting go and accepting yourself for who you are and accepting your relationships for what they are. You don't have to always push or make things happen. Just even take a moment around this eclipse time and, relax and let go of like the struggles and try to enjoy your life and try to connect with people around you. So a lot can be said about this eclipse, right? I'm a Libra rising, Libra Mercury, Libra South Node natally. So this Libra energy is just like so familiar to me. But I would like the final thing before we go into horoscopes, I would just urge you to tap into the creative side of Libra, right? Like if you feel like things are not where you want them to be, if you feel like maybe your relationships are confusing, or your job or situation with your child or pregnancy or whatever it might be is out of your control, try to find some balance and peace through art and through music and dance, and like appreciate those kind of things. Try to bring some joy into your life around the time of this eclipse. So let's talk about the rising signs. And once again, highly recommend listening to the other video I made. And if you have questions about your personal life and how your chart is getting affected, you can always book a reading with me at anastasiadoesastrology.com. So if you are an Aries rising, you're getting a solar eclipse in your 7th house, and it's ruled by Venus in the 6th. So solar eclipse in the 7th suggests major new beginnings in your love life, as well as in your business or in any kinds of partnerships, right? But some of these new beginnings can be coming out of needing to be more honest, out of a need to release something. Maybe you are releasing a job, and then your partner needs to like take more care of you, or it's the opposite. Maybe your partner is going through a transformation financially and you're being the one who is like handling more. On a spiritual level with the South Node here, I think you're looking very closely at your romantic tendencies, at your conflict avoidance, at your beliefs around relationships. Maybe, with Libra in your 7th house, you can be quite idealistic. You can be very romantic, but also at times too idealistic, to a point that you don't sort of accept that things can be the wrong way. So while Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, is in your 6th house, To me, this is suggesting that you're looking at yourself more honestly. Maybe you're examining your health, maybe you're examining your work and your desires, and then your relationships are shifting accordingly. So if you're able to be more honest, if you're able to be more aware of what actually goes into the relationship and what actually goes into building commitment, right, and working with somebody else, then your relationships improve in the process. I can also definitely see this being professionally oriented with the Pluto in your 10th house and a square to this eclipse. Like some kind of changes, whether that is in your life, in your professional life, or in your partner's professional life, can result in you needing to come up with a new routine, with a new structure. Like maybe they get a job that requires them to be away from home, and you need to organize the logistics of like picking up your child now because they're not there. So new cycles can be connected with that too. And your relationship to like success is potentially under review, and how your relationship to success or your tendency to control things is affecting your relationships. Let me know how this resonates. Have you been feeling any big new beginnings in your love life already, or have you been feeling ready for new beginnings? Because solar eclipse in the 7th house could also be letting go of a relationship as well. If you are a Taurus rising, the solar eclipse in Libra highlights your 6th house, and it is ruled by Venus in the 5th house. So with Venus in the 5th, you are currently focused on improving your creative life, improving your relationship with your child, on becoming a parent potentially. And the solar eclipse in the 6th, to me, it's almost like an invitation to let something go. Because 6th house is the work space. It's the place of hard work, sweat and tears, dedication to the job, dedication to the projects, doing volunteer work, like running to serve, kind of working at the animal shelter. 6th house represents animals as well, right? So there might be like a lot on your plate, and the solar eclipse in the 6th house is inviting you to set something down, to let something go, to rethink. North Node is in Aries in your 12th house. It's suggesting a need for more spiritual balance, for more spiritual focus. And with the solar eclipse in Libra, you're really asking honestly, what is authentically pleasing? What is important for your life? What is not, right? Like what is destructive, or maybe even some kind of like maybe it clutters your life? Or where are you handling things on your own instead of delegating? So making adjustments in your work, making adjustments to your health, your professional life, your everyday life that require you to set something down and rethink something. The square to Pluto connects us to the 9th house of education, travel, law, publishing. So maybe you can delegate and make some changes in those areas as well, and just find ways to create a better schedule, to have like a better flow through your life, to streamline your life somehow. And let me know how this resonates down below. If you are a Gemini rising, there's a solar eclipse in your 5th house, suggesting major new beginnings surrounding romance, creativity, and children. Maybe you are getting pregnant. Maybe you are sending your child to school. Maybe you're starting a new relationship. But this is a South Node eclipse, so there's a lot of lessons that come from the past. There's a lot of reflection on your past relationships and people you used to attract and what you want right now. The ruler is Venus in Virgo in your 4th house. So Venus in Virgo in the 4th is interested in improving your home and family and living situation. Maybe changes to your love life come from that. She would also point you towards the past and the family karma. There might be a lot of realizations around your sense of joy or your romantic life or even your parenting style and how those are affected by your family karma, right? Because if you grew up and you always had to be perfect, right? You always had to be the good girl or a good boy, or you grew up in a house that like never had any fighting. Maybe like your parents never fought. There was just silent treatment, and you realize how that is affecting your current relationship with your partner or with your child, and you're realizing that something needs to be let go of, right? Something needs to be kind of transformed potentially. There might also be changes around creativity where you are realizing that some of your pursuits are not as enjoyable, and maybe you're going for more spiritual pursuits and like choosing projects that are more that are good for your soul. You might be looking at your love life and realizing that the people you go for are not right for you, where maybe you've been choosing them based on their looks, and now you're understanding that instead you want to be aligned with them and you want to be on the same page and have similar values. Definitely pregnancy and changes around parenthood. I can see here where maybe your perspective is shifting. Maybe you used to think that you only want to have your own child, and now you're open to adopting. And some kind of, I think, transformation of pleasure, because fifth house represents sex, and you might also be realizing what you truly like, and maybe kind of coming in more of an alignment with what you enjoy and becoming more open to different types of pleasure. Or you're actually letting go of some negative habit where maybe you've been spending too much on partying. So adjusting the scales, right? When it comes to love, when it comes to creative pursuits, when it comes to joy, children, sex, etc. Let me know how this resonates down below. If you are a Cancer rising, there's a solar eclipse in your fourth house ruled by Venus in the third. So solar eclipse in the fourth highlights, shines big light on your house of home and family and living situations, suggesting changes there. Maybe you're moving back, right? It's a South Node eclipse. So the past, you might be moving to a place you once used to live. You might be moving in with family. You might be making changes to the home where you're opening up an attic and you're looking at the history, you're looking at family photos and having deep realizations. The South Node eclipse in here could be very much an invitation to look at your childhood and to acknowledge how with Libra in the fourth house, you perhaps grew up in a household where conflict was taboo and fighting and expressing your feelings was not allowed, right? Venus in the third suggests communication focus. She rules your fourth house eclipse, but she really draws you to talk. And this could be your actual family. This could be your adopted family. This could be your neighbors that you're communicating with. But the goal is to find more honesty. The goal is to find more balance in the familial relationship and perhaps examine the patterns you have inherited around home, around family, around conflict, around being a parent yourself, right? Like, how has your childhood affect you, and how can you improve your present by learning from the past and not repeating the mistakes of the past. Of course, your family member can also be going through a change and transformation with the South Node eclipse. Maybe they're letting go of something. I've seen this type of eclipse bring a change where the person is like really focused on their professional life and they're making changes to the home that are inspired by the personal life. By the professional changes. The square to Pluto in the seventh definitely points us towards relationships and one-on-one romantic relationships. That's why I'm even more inclined to say that here you're learning from your childhood, learning from your parents and their marriage and how they used to deal with things, and perhaps you're understanding that you are your own person and you don't have to repeat things that you have grown up with. Please let me know how this resonates down below. If you are a Leo rising, there's a solar eclipse in your third house and it's ruled by Venus in the second. So this is quite exciting, I think. I mean, I'm excited for this eclipse in general, but Worth noting that later in the month, on October 28th, we have a lunar eclipse in your house of career, right? So there is a big focus this month on your professional aspirations, on your skills and hobbies and gifts and your schedule and your finances. So you're getting things organized, right? With this specific eclipse, Venus is in the second house. She's suggesting a retooling of some kind of your finances. You may be paying off debts. You may be consulting financial advisors, opening savings accounts, and just getting more organized financially, right? Your values might be changing, where things that once mattered to you no longer do. You might be becoming more honest with yourself and more realistic about what's feasible, right? Like this could also be, oh, I wanted to have a startup with 50 people. How about I just start with 2 people instead and not break my bank, right? So there could be a sense of like realization, of making like realizations around money and resources and priorities. And then the solar eclipse in the third house is your everyday life. It's your skills, it's your tools you use, it's the trips you make, it's people you talk to. And through the lens of Venus in the second house and through the lens of the upcoming eclipse in the 10th house, and even Pluto in your 6th house of everyday work, you are taking a close look at everything you do, everything you put in your day, people you talk to, right? Like neighbors you have, and you are either resolving some conflicts there, or you are letting some things go, right? Like here, you're very much, how can you build a perfect schedule for yourself? How can you become more organized? How can you streamline, release, cut corners, or, get like tools that you need in order to get you to where you're trying to go? This could mean upgrading your computer. This could mean changing where you live, even moving, or, like opening up your schedule, setting like an hour aside every day to do writing, decluttering your room so that you have space for your art project. Could be like a lot of opportunities, a lot of insights around your everyday life and how you move through your everyday life, and perhaps finding a better flow there. And please let me know how this resonates. Of course, third house also is representative of siblings, so the lives of your siblings might be changing. Your communication with them might be changing. Maybe you're learning to speak up and assert yourself. There might be surprises and transformations in the lives of the siblings, or something changing in your neighborhood. Third house represents writing and blogging and business, so you can also be opening space for any of those projects. If you are a Virgo rising, there's a solar eclipse in your second house ruled by Venus in the first. So this is fun, I think, right? The solar eclipse in the second house brings attention to your values, to the things that are important to you. And South Node is not material, right? So there is some kind of sense of you are perhaps less driven to make a ton of money, but maybe you're more driven to pursue things and projects and interests that make you happy. Maybe they're connected to education with Jupiter and the lunar eclipse coming up in your 9th house. Maybe they're connected to serving others. Maybe they're connected to beauty with Venus in the first house. But something in your desires is changing, right? I can even see the solar eclipse in the second house as like getting a job, but the job doesn't pay as much as you used to get paid, but you feel like it's an exciting new beginning because you are going for the things that you want. There might be a sense of self-acceptance and deeper self-understanding with Venus being in your first house. And let's remember that Venus just spent 4 months in your 12th house. So you've been churning and trying to understand yourself a lot. So there is a lot of focus on you. There's a lot of focus on like, what is truly important to me? What is important to me without asking anybody else? Financially, second house represents your money, right? So there might also be money you're investing into something. South Node energy tends to be it's new beginnings, but once again, it's some kind of new beginning that involves like cleansing and release. With North Node in your 8th house, you may be investing into a mortgage or maybe starting a business. So the change around finances is happening because you are prioritizing partnership or prioritizing growth and finding things to invest into. And that might be you yourself. That might be personal growth and personal development that, like I said, maybe involves moving or traveling or teaching or writing with the lunar eclipse coming up in your 9th house. Might be a pay raise, might be some kind of, new strategy around finances, because the 2nd house is money, but it's also values. And I find that when you value yourself, when you feel happy within yourself, your resources tend to increase as well. So think of how can you invest in yourself and prioritize personal joy and happiness. And for you, it's also likely to be about serving other people, right? And how can prioritizing those things can actually bring more fulfillment than going for the highest paying job. Looking forward to hearing from you down below to see what you think. If you are a Libra rising, hello Libra risings, you're getting a solar eclipse in the 1st house, which is a major reorientation, retooling, changing, pivoting, adjusting of who you are. It's ruled by Venus in the 12th, so there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of facing negative shadow side of yourself. Either releasing something like, like you quit drinking, for example, or you quit smoking and you start to make proactive, happy choices for yourself. Or it could also be a sign that you're becoming more aware of your hidden self, right? Maybe it's getting more comfortable with your spiritual interests and not caring that what other people might think, right? You don't have to apologize, just a sec, for having interests that don't match up with what your family likes, for example. And family comes from the square to Pluto in the 4th house. Being like what I talked about in the beginning of the video, how I realized how my style, like my conflict style in relationships, is affected by how I tried to get my parents' attention when I was small. So having some kind of deep insights and realizations about the past, about karma, about giving up your power to other people or allowing other people to define you. With North Node in your 7th house, you are in this phase in your life right now where you're invited to be honest and to be truthful and brave. And it very much starts with your 1st house, where you are brave to be who you are, right? You're brave to make the changes necessary, but you're also happy to accept yourself for who you are. So, there's a lunar eclipse coming up in the 8th house that represents a change, a shift, a transformation around resources, around dependencies on other people. So I'm quite excited about this solar eclipse on October 14th, because I think it's an invitation to be A, happy within yourself, B, open to make the changes necessary, and C, finding freedom and letting go of unhealthy habits and dependencies, and like letting go of all of the shallow negative side of Libra, right? Like you're gifted as a Libra rising, you're gifted with social grace and you're gifted with people skills, but you don't always have to please other people. You have to first take care of yourself and be happy within yourself. So this eclipse is an invitation to get in touch with who you are. And let me know how this resonates in the comments below. If you are a Scorpio rising, the solar eclipse happens in your 12th house, highlighting the need for more peace, for more spiritual alignment and growth. So 12th house eclipses are very introspective. They tend to bring us into the place of like inner meditative state. We're not necessarily always feeling like that, but there might be a need to examine your mental health and examine how you take care of yourself and examine your self-defeating tendencies. The eclipse is ruled by Venus in the 11th house, so she is focused on friendships and relating with other people and collectives and the groups, or also your dreams that involve perhaps some kind of social climb, right? And the solar eclipse in the 12th, to me, is suggesting that you're needing to look at your 12th house. Is always, you know, it's like spirituality, it's imagination, but it's also some ways in which you may be standing in your own way. And in like Libra house, this could be being maybe like avoiding confrontation. Like as a Scorpio rising, you're quite intense and you're not afraid of the shadows of life, right? But maybe there are some parts of your life where you're being too accommodating, or you're being too focused on too focused on other people and what they want. And so the solar eclipse in the 12th house could call you to let go of perhaps some unhealthy dynamic. It could be an unhealthy dynamic in a friendship where you tend to, you know, put yourself second to your friends, or it could be an unhealthy dynamic where you are procrastinating too much and not following your dreams. It could also be even your tendency to see the darkness first, right? Like as a Scorpio rising, you're Mars ruled. You are the child of the god of war. So maybe you have this tendency to like jump to the negatives first, or to be too skeptical, or to be too dark, and to like even certain fears you have, right? Like the South Node solar eclipse in Libra could urge you to appreciate the lighter side of life and maybe find like a good balance between knowing the shadows but also being able to relax and enjoy. And there's also an invitation here to create some kind of spiritual practice that is of Libran nature. Maybe it's going hiking. I mean, hiking is not so much Libran, but going dancing with your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's just like doing something spiritual and chill, right? That doesn't necessarily put you in a dark place. So yeah, like 12th house is your blind spot, and in the blind spot are lurking your self-defeating tendencies. So you're clearly looking at those, but they're also parts of your personality that are calling for you to be incorporated. So if you have this secret kind of happy side to you, or secret people-pleasing side to you, maybe you use that energy to do something creative or to do something joyful and please people through your art versus please people via sacrificing your true goals. Let me know how this resonates down below. If you are a Sagittarius rising, there's a solar eclipse in your 11th house, and it is ruled by Venus in the 10th. So solar eclipse in the 11th is all about new beginnings and friendships, networks, groups, and your social role within the collective. It's ruled by Venus in the 10th, so you're working on your public image, you're working on your status. Of course, it's Venus in her fall, so there might be a sense of dissatisfaction with something. Maybe you're dissatisfied with the system, maybe you're dissatisfied with authority figures, with people you sort of have to work with. And that is what the solar eclipse could be also about, where you're examining, because South Node represents cooling and letting things go a lot of times. So you might be looking at associations you have and the people you let in and the people you call your, family or your friends or your tribe, whatever it might be, and realizing that something feels fake, something feels shallow, something feels phony, and it might be the time to have honest conversations, to examine your relationships with people, to talk things through, right? And to maybe either let somebody go or move through the shallowness to actually find the truth. South Node represents the past, so you might be dealing with some kind of old issue with a friend, or even a friend from the past coming into your life, and even maybe like activating something within you that you thought you long forgot about and let go of. So there might be There might be a lot of growth around this time and recognition of yourself and your own patterns through your friendships. Maybe you're finding new groups of friends. Maybe you're connecting with people who are more aligned with what you're trying to accomplish. Maybe you're aligning with other mothers who know what you're going through. Maybe you're connecting with people in recovery if you are in recovery. Maybe you're finding some kind of spiritual group and exploring more of like astrological groups where you can be on the same page with them. So definitely interesting possibilities in terms of both people you surround yourself with, but also your role and the role you play in the people's lives, even becoming somebody who influences other people and who helps other people. I can see here. And let me know how this resonates down below. If you are a Capricorn rising, there's a solar eclipse in your house of career. Status, reputation, public image, aspirations, right? Things you are known for, things you do when you leave your house. Some of us work from home, but things that you aspire towards with the solar eclipse in Libra in your 10th house. It is ruled by Venus in the 9th, which could be an indicator of like an ideological shift. It can also be a sign of changes when it comes to education, like graduating or becoming a teacher, writing, completing a project. Maybe you are a writer and dealt with the writer's strike and now you're adjusting to life after it. There definitely with Venus in the 9th, there's some kind of ideological shift. And with the solar eclipse in the 10th and North Node in your 4th, right? South Node in the 10th, North Node in the 4th, Pluto in your 1st house, like a lot going on. Pluto in the 1st especially will be a sign of some kind of important personal transformation. And with South Node eclipse in the 10th house, you are going through professional changes, but the changes are not necessarily to gain more notoriety or to gain more fame. Instead, it is something you're pursuing spiritual satisfaction. You're pursuing goals that feel important, that feel meaningful, right? Ruled by Venus in the 9th. It's like, what are your beliefs? What are your ideals? What is your faith? What are your guiding principles? What are you trying to tell? Venus in the 9th can also be like urging you to go back to school. It can be urging you to pursue travel full-time. Good for you if that's what you can do full-time. That is a lovely lifestyle. It can urge you to be writing full-time, right? So you're making adjustments to your career and potentially letting something go. I know it's hard for Capricorn risings to let go of professional ambition. Capricorn suns, Capricorn moons as well. There's always a lot of hard work and energy that is familiar to you, that you are a hardworking, stern, productive person. But the South Node eclipse in the 10th house in Libra really says that there's ways to do it while you're also having fun. And there's ways to do it when you're not worrying too much about pleasing other people. There's ways you can do it, and maybe you have to burn first, right? Maybe you have to die and be reborn first with a square to Pluto. But I think if you're able to release that more like shallow, unhealthy professional tendency, even recognizing why you work so hard, right? Like South Node energy, like why do you think you need to be so productive? Why do you think you need to work until 9 o'clock in the evening, right? Recognizing that, setting something aside, learning to have more joy and choosing projects that are more fun and less detrimental to your health and well-being are all strong possibilities here. And please let me know how this resonates down below. If you are an Aqua rising, there's a solar eclipse in your 9th house, ruled by Venus in the 8th. We have lunar eclipse coming up in the 4th. So solar eclipse in the 9th suggests, on one level, ideological shift, some kind of transformation of your mind. That's what 9th house is, the place of the higher mind. It can also suggest new beginnings connected to education, travel, writing, publishing, law. it's a South Node eclipse. So we gotta take into account that it's a South Node, and South Node is cooling. It's spiritual. It's you know, it's more generous in some ways because it just doesn't care about material gains. So you might be experiencing a transformation in that regard. There might be, you know, if we're talking about a legal matter you're involved in, this might be the time you settle because you no longer want to keep fighting. If we're talking about like a writing contract, this might also be the time when you either let go of some kind of unhealthy negotiating technique, or you open yourself up to a different possibility. The ruler is Venus in the 8th, right? And Venus in the 8th suggests redefining resources, redefining how you relate with other people, redefining support, how other people, you know, take care of you, how they share with you, how you share with them. So definitely interesting possibilities I can see here in relationships, where you start to trust your partner a little bit more. Maybe you go for some kind of, maybe, you know, you put your resources together with your partner, or you renegotiate a contract and now you're opening yourself up to a different type of relationship. Venus ruling the 8th with a solar eclipse in the 9th, transformations around education. Venus in the 8th house could just maybe reveal that getting another loan is unhealthy, and so you have to brainstorm different solutions. Maybe you decide to get a scholarship, or you decide to postpone graduation. Maybe you decide to work for a little bit. So definitely some kind of important insights and realizations surrounding education, travel, legal matters, I said it. I already said education. But yeah, like writing and publishing. I can also see this as very important in terms of like looking at your beliefs, looking at your idea of the world and your place in it, and realizing that you don't have to do it alone, right? Like even Venus in the 8th suggests that there's support, there are resources, there's an eclipse coming in your 4th house, so maybe your living situation is transforming, maybe you're moving in with your partner, or you're purchasing a home and building a nest and sort of creating a sense of unity. So an ideological shift that involves relationships, that involves sharing, and even your living situation is likely. Please let me know how this resonates down below if you're an Aquarius rising. Now, if you are a Pisces rising, there's a solar eclipse in your 8th house ruled by Venus in the 7th. Solar eclipse in the 8th is a sign of new beginnings in the sector of partners' resources. Maybe your partner's resources are transforming. Maybe they're getting a new job and now suddenly they make a lot more money than you are, and you have to adjust to that. Maybe your partner is losing their job or letting go of a job, and that places a lot more weight on you being the breadwinner. The ruler is Venus in the 7th, so it's all about relationships. And if you're single, this can apply to your relationship with a parent, or relationship with a friend, or your de facto spouse, right? Like your business partner, or even the way you see relationships with other people, right? Venus in the 7th could be very critical of the partner and like critical and picky. So be careful of that. But you can also be accepting and honest and kind of aware and, you know, more clear about the needs and the goals in relationships. And then the solar eclipse in the 8th house is really like calling you to look at how you see sharing and how you see relating, and whether you keep score, or whether you focus too much on things being fair, or whether you're too willing to compromise and to say, you know, okay, and to let your partner do whatever they want to do. So South Node eclipse, not necessarily like dramatic conflicts, but definitely a sense of like needing to realign and needing to renegotiate and maybe come to like a more honest understanding with your partner, especially when it comes to resources and finances. Like maybe you're moving in with your partner and you need to figure out how to handle groceries and laundry and whatever else you might be dealing with. So yeah, like rethinking sharing, rethinking giving dynamics, maybe renegotiating some contracts and coming to like different agreements with people in your life, paying off some debts and closing some tabs, right? Like looking at dependencies and clearing some dependencies, as literal as they might be if you have a financial debt, or as spiritual. Maybe you need to put up some boundaries in the relationships and not be afraid to hurt the other person, but instead try to find more balance in the way you share, you give, and you take. And this completes the circle of the 12 zodiac signs. We have an eclipse, and then we have another eclipse coming up. I am, quite hopeful for this month to be good. I'm especially excited for like the energy that comes once we cross into like the 22nd, 23rd, and we get into Scorpio season, because there's going to be some lovely harmonious aspects, and Venus will be making harmonious aspects. So even if you feel unsteady, even if you feel shaken up and uncertain about this eclipse, just know that there's some light coming, happy energy. The sun will rise. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.